Indiana Jones, Indiana It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute, the podcast in which we get to the heart of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Jerry Porter.
And by the way, that's Pete's line. Get to the heart of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I got right off at the beginning. I got to give him credit for that. That's incredible. Anyway. Save it.
All right.
We're still in the... Are we in Shanghai? I guess we're in Shanghai. Anyway, Minute 2. This is Minute 2 of Temple of Doom. And Minute 2 begins with the continuation of the musical number in front of the big dragon head. And it ends with a chorus line of shiny dancers and production designer Elliot Scott's credit. And, we're still doing Anything Goes. Cole Porter, Kate Capshaw. I almost said this yesterday, but watching it this time... I should say I hadn't seen this movie in maybe 20 years, literally. And until I watched it again for this. And watching it this time, I was like, wow, Kate Capshaw, she wasn't a big star. This was like maybe like her first big movie. And she's got to like sing and dance, like sing in Mandarin and like do this thing and this choreographed thing. And she's got to like express and like get these words out and stuff. Like that had to be a lot of pressure. And it makes me very nervous to watch it. But she pulls it off quite beautifully. And, hats off to her.
Well, I mean, speaking of Kate Capshaw, like, I love that right eye wink.
Yeah.
It's like she's a professional winker.
It's coquettish.
Yeah, like nothing else on her face moves, and her eyelid closes like a perfect window shade.
Yeah, That's a wink.
Yeah, but it's more than a wink. You're like, I can't wink like that.
It's a wink with a capital W.
Yeah,
for Willie. Sorry.
But there are a lot of people that talk about. There are a lot of people that don't like. I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and say a lot of people dislike Willie Scott in this movie.
Right. We got to get that out there. I mean.
Yeah, I'm actually surprisingly, after watching this movie a couple times recently, I don't think I'm one of those people. But whether you are or not, one thing I like.
Curious. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Whoa. Minute 2. Explosive.
Well, I mean that raises a good point. I mean, like, are we supposed to be playing our cards close to the vest about this? About like how we feel about the movie?
Yeah, maybe that was too much.
Well, let me at least say that this movie was huge for me as a kid. When it came out, it was the movie. It was incredible. I knew it wasn't as good as Raiders, but I loved it, and it was awesome. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, on that level alone, it has a very special place in my heart, and I'll just leave it at that for now.
Well, and I bring that stuff about Willie up because I like in this scene we get her in her own element, where she's in control and she's poised. Mm-hmm. And like you get to see her in a lot of different situations and maybe she acts in different ways, but it's nice to see her in her own environment, and she's a pretty cool character.
Yeah, but she's got that one little as she's approaching the dragon, she does like it's the end of
that
a
little
verse
stutter step where she almost trips.
Yeah, and I think that's really I like that a lot.
I do too.
That's like getting just a tiny little bit of her, you know, offstage personality into her floor show. Like I'm in the context of the show, I'm sure it's like an accident, but in the context of the movie,
I've got a big question about that. Is that just serendipity and she like made it like she tripped a little bit while they were filming, or is that part of the movie, or is that actually part of her act in Shanghai?
I feel like it's part of the movie that like she Kate Capshaw is doing that on purpose as Willie Scott, who is not doing it on purpose.
Okay,
does that make sense? Like she's Willie Scott screws up a little bit and saves it, you know, with a little bit of cute style. But yeah, I think that's part of the movie.
I'd believe her either way.
Yeah.
If it's part of the movie, I'm like, oh my God, what a great little subtle trip.
Yeah.
And if it's not, you're like, holy hell, jeez, that was a great recovery.
Yeah. as a kid, I didn't like this scene. Like I really didn't like it. But as an adult, I think this might be my favorite part of the movie. And I like over the years, I became a big fan of Busby-Berkeley, who
cool.
did all those big musicals back in the 30s, especially like Footlight Parade or 42nd Street or Gold Diggers of 1933. And this is such a wonderful homage to the stuff he did. And it was every one of those, you know, you start off with a musical on a stage and they go through a magical portal of some kind, and they come out in just this magical, impossible world that's bigger, you know, spatially impossible. And that's exactly what happens here in this movie. Like she goes into the dragon's mouth and they find themselves like in this whole universe of exploding stars, and it's fantastic.
Well, I do have a note here that I actually sort of answered for myself a little bit reading the Rinsler book. I just have a note here, self-indulgent. Because I assumed watching this for years, and up until just a few days ago, I assumed that Spielberg was like, all right, everybody out of my way. I'm going to put a huge musical number right at the beginning of this movie because I've always wanted to do this. This is going to be great. But then reading recently, I found out that George Lucas was like even way back then developing his massive hit Radioland Murders. And that was going to have a big musical number like this in it. And somehow he like said, well, it's not working in that movie. Let's put it in Temple of Doom. So he said, hey, Steven, you get to do one of those big musical numbers you wanted to do. So it was like Lucas's idea, but Spielberg was totally into it. Yeah. And there it is.
That's cool. But is Spielberg making a point here? Like by really very overtly quoting Busby-Berkeley, and they step into this world that's a completely different world than where they started, and it's kind of impossible. And, you know, it's like she's singing Anything Goes. Like it feels like he's making a point like this movie's going to be something that you kind of have to maybe set aside your preconceived notions, and it's going to be maybe something a little bit different than you're expecting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, my note is, hey, where exactly does the dragon's mouth lead to?
You're right.
So, but Pete, I mean, as somebody who enjoys this style of movie, I mean, I guess you answered that. Another world.
Yeah.
Of exploding stars.
Exploding star, like figurative and literal. And, you know, in the movies, like they would go into these giant stages that, I mean, were impossible on an actual stage. Right. And they would have these casts of hundreds and hundreds of dancers and actors, and they'd have, you know, they'd be swimming in the water. They'd do this just incredible choreography. And it's cool. Like we have that in this movie. And I don't know if we'd seen this for a long time in Hollywood. And it's such a nice throwback.
It is. I mean, even if it is self-indulgent in some way, it's fun just knowing that, you know, Lucas and Spielberg, they're such film nerds. They want to just, you know, get their hands dirty with any kind of like old-timey Hollywood fun that they grew up on and stuff. So, you know, they're having fun. Although it is weird. Like maybe this happened in the old movies too, but like you know, this is supposed to be a floor show at a club, and now this is all happening where nobody can see it inside this dragon's mouth.
That was my thing.
That happened in every one of the Busby-Berkeley movies. Like,
okay, cool.
They would be on stage and they would go, you know, like they're just a normal stage in New York City and Broadway. And they'd go like into a little portal, and all of a sudden there'd be a giant pool and there'd be 100 swimmers in there. And it would be impossible. No one could see it, but it's just a magical world you step into.
Well, cool. That and the fact that I was wondering if there's some secret colony of Nordic women in Shanghai.
Apparently. Yeah.
Like, as a matter of, you know, is anybody in this production of Anything Goes actually Asian? Gotcha.
No, but I wonder if I wonder if that's I don't know. I wonder if that's historically accurate at all or something. If you know a Hong Kong club if it would be cool for them to have like all, you know, Caucasian women in their floor show or something. If that's some kind of exotic,
I don't know. It might be. I mean, and the women at the beginning are clearly supposed to. They're wearing like Asian garb or dresses and the hats and the fans, but no one is actually Asian.
Well, there's a really good book that came out a couple of years ago called Shanghai 1937, and it was about sort of about the Japanese invading Shanghai, but it was about what Shanghai was like around this time. And they had a part of the city called the International Quarter where they had all these giant nightclubs, and a lot of the people who worked in them were Western. So I think this actually is potentially accurate. I mean, but it would have shown that whoever's running this club is an incredibly rich guy, that he can pay all these people, you know, all these Americans to come over here, or all, you know, wherever they're from.
like
Right.
a colony of blonde 6-foot women.
And then he keeps him hidden inside a dragon. That seems like a huge waste.
Yeah. I guess it's a magical world.
Or it's somebody's fever dream.
I wonder if anyone has ever, on YouTube or anything, if anyone's ever done a mashup between this and Xanadu. I can kind of see that in my mind's eye. It'd be kind of awesome.
Well, now, Pete, you said that the magic exploding stars. I was like, is that real? Am I on something? Like, how do they do that? I mean,
People
how
are
do
throwing
they
popcorn in the theater?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
And I was like, if you're in the freaking restaurant, like, how do they do that? Or is
What's
that
going
just
on in
for
there?
Yeah,
That dragon.
what's going on in the dragon's mouth? And by the way, the dragon has. I love how his nostrils are, streaming with this red fire.
That actually makes my nose tickle. I hate that.
And the guy they hired to do the choreography is a guy named Danny Daniels, and he did a lot. He was a featured dancer in several Broadway musicals in the 40s, which, as soon as I read that, made me feel really old, because I was thinking, man, the 40s is so long ago. But then when you think about how long ago that was from when they made Temple of Doom, like, we're about that far away from Temple of Doom almost. And it's
Oh
kind
my God.
Oh, jeez. I was just happy, like, well, Anything Goes was a new hit single.
Yeah. That is a good song for if you're going to start an Indiana Jones movie with a show tune with an old timey Cole Porter song. Anything Goes is a pretty good thematically apt.
Well, what I like about starting the Temple of Doom this way is because, yeah, it's true. It doesn't really speak to your 13-year-old, and it's nothing like Raiders. But I mean, maybe you're right, Pete. Maybe they're setting the stage for a totally different type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it did draw me in, even as a kid. That was that whole show tunes thing that I was talking about. It really did draw me in. I wasn't expecting it, but it is a great opening.
And I guess if you're going to be making a series of movies that largely take place in the 30s, like we saw, a little like pre-World War II kind of stuff and Raiders, it wasn't like super steeped in like American 30s or something. Like this obviously isn't America, but it's something that Americans would be used to back then from the movies and stuff. So it is, it maybe be a missed opportunity if you didn't do something like this.
Yeah, and I mean, if you watch like those big Busby-Berkeley, like if you watch Footlight Parade or 42nd Street, like those came out, a year or two before this movie is set.
Yeah.
And so it is actually contemporaneous kind of stuff.
That's cool. Maybe they know what they're doing. We get some credits here.
Yeah.
Is there anybody cool?
A couple.
I forget.
Kathleen Kennedy.
I've heard of her.
She gets the first non-actor credit in this movie, which is a big step up from when she was, listed as assistant producer in Raiders.
Yeah. Getting coffee for Spielberg.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's now kind of moved into the big role where she's sitting now.
Now, do you know who she is, Jerry? Do you know the name Kathleen Kennedy?
Didn't she?
She played Belloc.
I was gonna say she's the back end of Snuffleupagus.
She's the head of Lucasfilm. She is the.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that. Yeah.
Oh, that Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah. No, you.
I went to high school.
Oh, Kathleen Kennedy.
So that's fun.
Yeah, and we get I think someone who deserves a lot of credit for this movie, costume designer Anthony Powell.
Yeah.
And he's got a great story about this dress that Kate Capshaw's wearing.
Oh, yes.
When they made this, and they used vintage beads that were originally from the 1920s and 30s, and they only had enough for just this one dress. And that was going to be fine because they were going to film this scene, done with the dress. But they wound up filming this scene last, and they ended up having to do a shot in Sri Lanka when they're filming that campfire scene, and an elephant actually eats the back of the dress. And so there's like this big crisis. Jesus. And they have to fly people in from New York, and they have to track down more sort of 1920s and 30s beads and sequins. And Anthony Powell talks about having to fill out the insurance forms for all these costs of fixing the dress.
Oh my God.
And he was cracking up because in the section that just says damages, he had to write "eaten by elephant."
But But now wait a minute. Like, is 13-year-old Tommy Taylor sitting here in 1984? He's gonna be like, those beads don't quite seem authentic. I've been taken out of this movie already. I don't think her Mandarin's that good, and I don't think those beads are quite authentic.
But if you're Tom Taylor's grandma, who used to wear those beads.
Yeah, but even then, can you can't you fake that? Can't they just be plastic or something? Like, it seems like a very, very tiny detail that no one ever would pick up on.
Well, this is the first signs that we may have, a difference between 1981 and 1984. This is a blockbuster.
Yeah.
But it's something that I don't know if they would do in blockbusters today.
The other thing I thought was, I was like, her dress is gold, so Indy's probably going to steal it. I don't know if he's going to like her, but he's definitely going to like that dress.
Right.
They did, speaking of red, originally in the script, she was going to be a flaming redhead.
Oh, really?
And George Lucas didn't like it. He didn't buy it. So she had to use a lot of peroxide to get that blonde look.
Is she naturally a redhead, Kate Capshaw?
I don't know what she is, but she's not naturally that shade of blonde, apparently.
Weren't they were going for sort of a Katharine Hepburn vibe, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah. I think Spielberg had her watch a bunch of Katharine Hepburn movies, actually.
Eat it, Tommy, eat it!
What the hell just happened? I mean, I'll eat it, but thank you. But I want to know why. What's the occasion?
I know a thing or two.
No, I'm proud of you, Jerry. That was good. Yeah. That was beautiful. That was real something. Oh, Jerry, speaking of Jerry, do you know what movie Kate Capshaw was in?
Space Camp.
Well, that's true. Very good.
Space Camp.
No, but for some reason, I always equate you with this movie. Dreamscape.
Space Camp.
Dreamscape. That movie Dreamscape.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Dreamscape was Dennis Quaid? Wasn't that Interscope?
He was in both. Interscape.
He was in Dreamscape, and Kate Capshaw was in Dreamscape?
Yeah.
I love that movie. And
That's a cool, weird movie.
Sucks. Does it not suck?
It's probably not as good as you remember, but it's probably great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything else that Kate Capshaw was in other than Space Camp and and Temple of Doom.
I think that's about it.
Oh, I read a funny thing about how she got cast for this movie. Like she'd been doing kind of more serious work in New York, and she didn't want to do this movie. She's like, I do serious film. And Spielberg invited her out, and they had sort of an awkward interview that ended with Steven Spielberg teaching her how to play a new video game. And they don't mention what the video game is, and I'm dying to know what video game he taught her.
It's probably that horrible E.T. Atari game.
Yeah,
exactly. The 2600.
Maybe it's the Raiders of the Lost Ark game.
This is based on my motion picture, E.T. Maybe you've heard of it.
But he had gone through like so many actresses trying to find the right one, and he said he loved her immediately. I mean, I guess in real life as well. But apparently he took some of the clips of her audition over to Harrison Ford and said, I've got like 20 of these, but I just want to show you one. I'm just going to show you Kate Capshaw. And Harrison Ford's like, that's all I need to see.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Well, boy, were they bullseye on that.
Ba-doing.
Yeah. Yeah, she's going to be better than Marion Ravenwood.
We'll see. Let's
Minute two.
Minute two, and we're already choosing our sides.
As they say a lot lately, give her a chance. Well, all right. Does that do it for this minute? Or I don't know. Were there any credits we needed to get to?
The only other one I've got is production designer Elliot Scott, who also went on to do Last Crusade. He did Labyrinth, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, nice. Wait, that's really interesting because for some reason I wasn't going to say this yet, but this whole Club Obi-Wan set, for some reason, reminds me a lot of Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, it does me too.
Is it just that club that whatever that cartoon club is that they go to?
Well, it's got that such a similar like Art Deco kind of vibe.
Yeah, maybe that's it. That's funny. That's really interesting. It's the same guy.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, there you go. we're learning things already. Minute 2. Well, all right. Let's pack this one up, and then we can come back tomorrow for minute 3. But first, Pete, where can the people get in touch with us to tell us that, of course, he did Roger Rabbit, and of course, she was in these other movies that we were forgetting about?
You can find us on Facebook. We've got a special page, also on a special group on Facebook called Indiana Jones Minute and the Listener's Crusade. And you can find us at indianajonesminute.com. We have lots of stuff up, different articles in the library. Come check it out.
Oh, and also, we didn't do this in our first episode yesterday, but we want to tip our hat to the Star Wars Minute guys once again.
Yes.
We did one season. This is our first time ever coming back from hiatus. So I guess this thing has got legs, and we owe a great debt of gratitude to them for starting this whole thing and for shepherding us along our way. So thank you guys. And everybody else, please come back tomorrow for minute 3 of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Anything goes. Y'all weren't ready.
We practiced this so many times and we still messed it up. Jones!
I'm winking.
I just tripped going up the steps.
Whoa.